Hello, everyone, and welcome. In this podcast today, we're exploring ways that people are raising the world through how they live and act, how they teach, how they inspire, and support others. At the heart of this podcast is the question, how can we better raise and educate people to improve the world and live more full lives? Today, we have Cat Lau. She is a healer, storyteller, and intuitive guide, bridging ancient wisdom and modern healing. Rooted in a lineage of Thai shamans and trained in modalities like Reiki, yoga, and holistic coaching, she helps people mend their inner worlds and weave more conscious, connected relationships. Her work is grounded in the belief that emotional pain holds the potential for deep transformation, and I'm excited to dive into that, and that the sacred lives in the everyday. Currently, Kat is traveling across Thailand for her documentary project, Wisdom Trails, where she listens to and documents the teachings of spiritual elders to help us reconnect with the sacred. How are you doing today, Kat?
I'm good. I'm letting that introduction land because I don't know if this ever happens to you, but I forget who I am or like what I do sometimes, and I almost feel like it's healthy, but it's helpful. It's really nice to hear that being reflected back. And as you were saying it, I was like, that sounds like an interesting life. Like who would live that life?
Yeah. And I'm sitting here talking to this very interesting person who I've only met a couple of times, but have always wanted to have a deeper conversation. So thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited.
I'm excited. Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and such a good point on like who we are and how sometimes that is dynamic and changing. And so that flows nicely into how I usually like to open with what is your story and how have you become who you are today to have kind of this outlook and interesting life that you do.
Yeah. I think a really big part of this is being Thai and from my mother's side, being very connected to the spiritual world. My mom is very spiritually gifted and she senses a lot of the unseen realm. And it comes from her father, so my grandpa, who is a shaman, and growing up, going to see him was just a very surreal experience. It's not, I would imagine that in other families, it's like, you know, you go to your grandpa and, I don't know, have dinner and watch TV with him or do some other things, but to see a shaman, you know, I don't, I thank goodness he allows me to hug him and like, and everything, so we have that, but it's also ending up talking about things that I would assume other people not being able to ask their grandpa about. Like, I was so afraid of ghosts when I was younger and would try to make sense of where they are or why they exist and why I can feel them and why I can feel certain energies. So being taught how to relate with the unseen world since I was younger, I think has shaped me a lot. And also having fun with his gifts and asking him to predict my future sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
As a kid, you know, like I was so interested in what I would do when I was older, and I was very interested in my teenage years about the guys I would date, and he would describe them to a T. Like he would describe, he would be like,
amazing.
Be careful of this one. He's skinny and is wearing glasses, and like you'll like him, but beware. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And then, sure enough, I should have be warned. I should have been careful. But yeah, it just brought this awe and mystery and curiosity for that realm. That because I still went to him to be that bridge for me to see, and I think eventually I saw, and instead of going to see him to ask him, I learned to go to him to reaffirm what I saw. And I think that is incredible in just my upbringing of like strengthening my intuition and trusting my own senses is something that I will forever be grateful for, and is also something that I've always wanted to help more people do, because I believe that everyone can do it. Yeah, that's a big part of my upbringing.
Amazing. What does it even mean to see?
It's a good one. I think looking with your eyes is seeing to a degree. And if we opened up all our senses, we see deeper. And you know, you're a coach, and when you're listening to someone, there's what they say, and there's how they're saying it, and everything in between. And the everything in between is the part where it gets interesting, because there's a lot of room for interpretation, and there's a lot being said and being communicated in this space. And in this space lives an entire world that we can learn how to see. And we get a lot more information from learning, from deciphering that. Yeah.
Okay. Totally. No, I mean, I get that, yeah.
Do you think other people would get it?
I think so. Especially when you explain, like, yes, there's the things that we can literally see, but then in the spaces around that, there's, like, so much there as well, in, like, how things are said, or, like... I guess I'm also curious how you would maybe explain, kind of like you were saying for your grandpa, of, like, being able to, like, have details on these guys that you might be seeing, and, like, like, how does that work, I guess? Like,
yeah. So I think this comes into the senses, and it's the sixth sense, right? It's the sense beyond the five that we live with in our everyday, and tapping into the subtle senses. So when you can feel this world, the unseen world, you also learn how to communicate with it, or to understand the little clues and hints it's giving you. So it comes with someone's like being. So like if you meet somebody and you're talking to them, if you're opening all your senses to that person, including your sixth sense, then you can also open up to receive information about them before they're even saying it. And it's with telepathy too. It's like, I'm sure people listening to this who might feel like this is a bit far out, just think about you and your best friend, or you and your sibling. It's like there are things left unsaid, but both of you know, or even like think about, and then one person says it first and the other person's like, I was literally just thinking about this. It's this tapping into this subtle realm that both of you have access to. And I think someone more skilled in this and practiced in it can always tap into that realm, right? Yeah. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So with that, I guess I'm super curious, because this is a skill that I feel like I'm always trying to develop more. What have you learned along your journey, and how to like deepen your connection to this sixth sense?
I think, so I started this, of course, with my grandpa and learning from him, but then I became more curious too of like, what does it mean to have all these new age modalities, and why do they exist? And they exist because us modern humans are hungry to reconnect with this, right? So there are new tools that speak to us now. So I went through these trainings too. Like I became a Reiki master, and I also taught Reiki. So this is a lineage from Japan that teaches energy healing through the hands. And I learned how to connect to the senses, or connect to the unseen realm of energy, how to work with energy, how to move energy through someone's body, how to remove energy blocks from someone's body. And then realizing that there are so many more lineages that exist as well, with our elders, that are not being celebrated or seen because it might be seen as something that belongs to an underworld or a mysterious world that is harder to reach, right? Like if you think of all the courses that we can find online that teaches us how to hone in on our intuition, it's a matter of a click and buying a course and a 6-week, a 6-week module thing that teaches us to connect to our intuition. And there's another way that I've realized we can do things, which is to go to the elders to see how they see and how they make sense of reality, which is harder to make structure of and digest in like a course way, but it's a way of living that really it really goes into you, and it makes you embody a way and an understanding of life that is almost taught like a skill when you're growing up, like a language, let's say. So do you remember learning English, right? Like I don't remember learning English. It was just, part of, it's a language growing up. It's just a part of our development. And so I realized that learning from the elders this way almost felt more true in my body. I was able to integrate it more. It didn't just live up here. Yeah. And gosh, now I forgot your question, Max.
It's like how to deepen this, and I think you're touching on a great point that really resonates of like, yeah, it's not so much just like knowledge, but it's like through doing and embodying and like living with people who are doing this too, so you're taking it on a little more deeply.
Right. And I think one thing that when I was on this search, meeting elders for wisdom trails, I met one teacher who is just incredible at simplifying concepts into words, and that's not always easy to do for elders. Like it's an oral tradition, so they tell stories around something for us to understand, right? But this teacher, he said, in Thai, we think people are weak when they say their hearts are soft or their minds are soft. So tit on, it means like this weakness of the mind, and it's almost seen like, okay, you can be crazy if you believe in this other realm. But he actually says that the softening of the heart and the softening of the mind is actually a wonderful thing, because you are able to be influenced and are able to tap into the waves of another reality. So the softening, like already when you think about your heart and mind and body softening, there's not so much a barrier anymore between you and the outside world, right? Or you and others. It's a opening to everything that isn't you. And when you think of it like that, you don't look at the world like, skin, and this is where cat ends and this is where the other starts. It's like, it's this gradual thing where we actually feel like we're a part of it all. And that is it can be scary for someone who that also feels a lot, because you go around and you feel everything, right? But if we really look at it, what a beautiful way to live in the world, knowing that you are 100% part of it. Like there's no separation, right?
Yeah. I think that's so beautiful, and such like a great image of just like connection and like openness to so much more wonder, I feel like, that's out there. Um, why
Exactly.
why do you think people are closed to this? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
what's caused that?
Since I've started this work, I've realized there was a lot of decolonizing of my mind I had to do, and realizing that a big part of this separation, or this hardening of self, separation, first of all, of self and our outside world, self and nature, man and women and humans apart from nature and each other, us versus them. This is a very colonial construct, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it teaches this othering of whatever isn't us or like us. And that naturally reinforces a barrier, a boundary, an othering, and it almost teaches you that this is safer to protect your kind or yourself from other. And I realized that, I wasn't, even with my upbringing, I couldn't escape that either. Like, that's just the world that we live in now. And so I think we're taught that it's safer to be harder, and it's safer to close. And it's and now learning through the elders, it's actually the opposite. Like, I was always taught that being too sensitive will work against me. And I could see that too when I was growing up. I was like, why am I so sensitive? Why do I feel so much? Like, stop being so sensitive. Like, don't cry. Don't feel all these things. And it does make sense that life could be smoother almost without feeling these things. You become more efficient if you don't feel these things. Efficient as in you can do more, you can work more probably. Nothing phases you as much, and you just keep grinding. But yeah, it took a lot of like unlearning and relearning as well of what strength in softening means.
Yeah, I love that. So with this, like, as you're explaining for yourself, that it could be more efficient if you, like, hardened and, like, we're living in this other way. What do you lose in that, like, efficiency?
Like in the hard way.
Yeah.
I think we lose and the awe of being human, the joys of being human, the ability to be in awe of everything else, and we become robots, and ultimately it leads to a disconnection that causes us a lot of pain. So, like, in healing traditions, there is a focus usually on returning to wholeness or oneness, and when we are seeing ourselves separate and operating in a way that is separate from everything else, it's a very painful way to exist, and we might not realize it until we face that burnout, and we go through bouts of depression. We don't know how we've gotten there and why we've gotten there. And then it's this very simple concept of, well, because you weren't seeing that you were part of something, and you were just seeing that grinding your way, working up a ladder and getting the salary, and this is success for you. You'll be happy once you get there. Doing that whole thing is just, for me now, after seeing it, it's just so opposite from how humans are. And so if we're not even living from our nature, then that's a great recipe to, be living a very sad life.
Right.
Just being sad.
Totally. Yeah, I totally see this in the world and in my own experience. I guess I could probably speak about the best of, like, going through life and living in this hardened way of like having up blocks, having up, like even now I'm thinking about hardened in terms of like my desires and fears and the things that like my past experiences have like ingrained in me to want. But it's like even those, as real as they feel, of like, oh, I want this or I don't want this, like those are born just out of like, could be a single experience, yet I'm making this like such a deep truth for me. And to me that's also such like a wall and like only one way of living, where it's like if I let go of these and open up to the possibilities and wonders of life, like who knows how much more could like come to me, and how could like just my one experience be the thing that is leading me in life. Like there's so much that the universe could be bringing that could just be so much more open and wonderful that I just couldn't even have comprehended at one point.
Yeah, I want to know also, like, do you know why or what makes most people harden, do you think? Like, what keeps people hardened?
I think it comes down to, I'm sure there's many things, but the one thing that's coming up for me is like fear and almost this lack of trust that things are going to be okay, or that they can like handle the world. I think I was taught, and many people are taught, that it's not okay to be who we are. Just through whatever, so many like systems, so much like generational trauma that's passed down, and in this like learning to not be who we are and needing, or like feeling like we need to change and be some other way in the world, we like abandon our authenticity, and also we like fear not being this like set way, whatever it is, by society, whatever our parents think we need to be. And we become so attached to like, people pleasing or doing these other things that it's like hard to step back into this openness and unknown of what it means to sometimes live authentically. Because as we've talked about already, it's like we're changing so much all the time, which can be scary if we have this lens that the unknown is a scary place. But if we can learn to like trust that in the unknown that there is so much beauty and like so much space for expansion, I just think that that's so beautiful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So maybe people hearing us speak don't know, but we went to school together. I'm older than you for by a few years, but like it made me think about even school times when like, I don't know about you, Max, but like I wasn't very good at anything. Like I wasn't good at the right things anyway that were supposed to be celebrated. Like I wasn't the straight A student. I wasn't, the best athlete. I wasn't even like a popular kid, right? So I always was kind of pushed to discover what my strengths were, because I didn't excel in anything that I was expected to excel in. So I think that almost, like, out of survival, right? It's like, okay, so like, what am I good at? And like, why am I here? And like, if I'm like a straight B student and like I'm on like JV, volleyball my whole life, like, like, am I just born to be average? And I think like when I was younger, I was like, I refuse to be average, because I'm sure that I am good at what I'm supposed to be good at. And it was so difficult, I think, even when we were in school, because or in I don't know, like schooling systems now are also like putting kids in boxes, right? Like, did you
totally?
What were you good at things? You were an athlete, right?
I was an athlete. That's the first thing that came up for me was being pretty good at sports, basketball, swimming, volleyball. That was such a big part of my identity, which ended up actually being its own like box and holding me back in so many ways, even though it was like celebrated. Yeah.
So then how did you break out of that? Or how did you deal with that, being in a box?
Yeah, when I first moved after like going to international schools here in Bangkok, I moved to the US like when I was around 17 with the intention to become even better at sports. I really wanted to go like play basketball professionally. But when I got to the US, just so many things, new environment, leaving behind my parents to go move, just so many changes. And on top of that, going to play basketball, but then realizing like, oh, the levels in Thailand versus the US are just so different. And so feel
Right.
like, oh, I'm actually not that good anymore and feel awful about it. And then going into like having such socially and like emotionally challenging next 2 years, my last 2 years of high school there, because I'm like, okay, I don't play sports anymore. Like, who am I? And just a lot of like figuring it out and like not knowing what to really do or how to like exist anymore was hard. And what happened? Um, I think just slowly realizing, I don't know if in those moments I realized it, but just realizing that, yeah, these labels and things aren't what define me. Like, there's so much more inside that's so dynamic as well. And just being okay with not knowing as well has been such like a groundbreaking thing for me, is like embracing more of the unknown. Yeah.
Whoa, okay. I knew this was gonna get deeper and deeper. But like it just made me think of like one of the questions that we were talking about of like meaning in life
Hmm.
um and then realizing that when you don't fall into any boxes, or when you realize that the box that you're in is actually hurting you because you're comparing yourself to the other people in the box, then
Yeah.
it really challenges you to make meaning out of your own life on your own terms,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. And this is also reminding me of like ideas from like Simon Sinek on like finite and infinite games, and how, yeah, when you're living in this box, it feels so finite, and that's just not how life could be. And yeah, there's a lot of comparing to other people in the box, um, especially with the, I guess, a general paradigm and belief in the world that like if you're not at the top, you're not good enough, or like you're not living a great life if you're not like the best. I feel like that's definitely hurt me a lot along the way.
Yeah, the best. And like, I mean, again, like when we enter that world, if we want to live in that world, then you're always trying to be the best in a box, um, which is an endless world of suffering because you're just trying to beat everyone else, which then takes us to this othering again of competitiveness.
Mm.
And it's this world that now I'm realizing like we need to, what does, if you soften that box, if you soften the self, if you're not like trying to beat other people, then what kind of world do we live in? And then there's room for everybody to be their own little bubble that can like collide with other bubbles and then collaborate and create new worlds. And like that's what I'm realizing is very much a reality that has existed in the past with our ancestors, and a world that we're losing because I feel like young people are yeah, I think of the young people as everyone under 40-ish, like not into not considering themselves like a wise elder anymore, but or yet, um, and we haven't been taught to value that, you know.
Really. Yeah, again, that like image of softening is so beautiful to me. Even like bringing in the idea of all these boxes and like what does it look like when these hard lines aren't there, yet maybe they're like dotted lines and people like kind of smashing into each other in like a beautiful way of like sharing experience and like love and wisdom and just taking it along with them as they float away. Like that's beautiful. It feels so easy and like
yes. And like, do you notice, you know why, like when I get asked like, but why should we care, like why should we think of ourselves as bubbles and like, not having such a clear barrier between us, and why should we collaborate and bounce off into the sunset together and like create cool worlds together? Why is because like, how did you feel when you were talking about that, Max? Because I felt peace in my heart, and like the softening is not just in meeting each other, but it's a softening of the body, and that is well-being.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Love it. Totally. I guess we've already touched on this a little bit, but what does it mean? Like, what is a meaningful life? Like, do you think there's a way to generally describe that for people?
Generally, let me think. I think a very general way of saying it is what's meaningful to you, like finding out what's meaningful to you. What does meaningful even mean? And then living your life by it. Like, I used to think meaningful was the amount of success, and success meaning a ladder to climb. But then because I didn't fit into that, I was like, okay, I have to define it for myself. So then that's where I think I would start for other people too, is like, if none of these structures existed and you had to go back to what your heart truly finds purposeful, but also like that you're at peace with, or that you feel fulfilled by, what is that? And for me, it's something that can't be quantifiable. For me, it's emotional intimacy is incredibly meaningful to me. If I feel emotionally activated or emotionally open to a conversation, to a tree, to my dogs, like, this is, for me, it's living deeply, because it reminds me how alive I am, and I want to feel alive while I am alive, and that's meaningful for me. But that's something quite niche, even in the way I'm saying it. Like, I'm describing it the way I see it. But I think if other people can describe what meaningful means to them in their own words, I feel like that's a really good start.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on like how to do that, of like trying to strip away all these things that maybe we've been told and taught about what success is. Is there anything else you would add in like how people connect with this meaning?
I wonder I don't know if this is too abstract for people, but it's like, what do you notice what in your life touches you? Like, you feel touched by, and maybe that's your heart being like kissed by experiences. Like, do you notice what makes you feel alive in your day-to-day? And it could be, I really like going for walks, and that lights me up. And then following the meaning, I think eventually leads up to a theme in your life. Like, for me, it's always been like stepping stones, and there's always a little spark. And if people are like, what the heck is a spark? I would be like, okay, when you feel dull and a bit like dead and just, sometimes I feel that in Bangkok, like we're literally living in between concrete. Like our walls are not breathable. So it has this like, you know, energy sometimes of just like, I'm just gonna go watch Netflix now, right? So that to me is like a dullness to life. And if you compare it to other moments where you're not feeling dull, what are those things that like that give you a little oomph, you know? And following that, I think is already, and it can be really small. It can be really small, but that eventually leads you to this theme that gets clearer and clearer to you on what's meaningful to you. Yeah. What about you, Max? What do you think?
Yeah, I think I really like that direction towards looking for these things that, yeah, make you feel and like touch your heart in some way. Maybe I'll offer up a few questions or prompts for people that I've used with others and have like gone through in workshops myself. But I like to do this activity. I actually got this from Simon Sinek as well, of like start with why. And I think he has a great framework for connecting to these things that really light you up and trying to like find the themes throughout these. And so there are kind of 4 stories that you could go through and prompt yourself for. Like, what is a recent experience at work or in life that you really loved being a part of? Another one that I love is pinpoint one person who has significantly influenced who you become, and like, what did they do? Tell a specific story about that. Like, what really like made this person significant for you? Another one would be like, I don't know, think of and share a specific happy like childhood memory. And yeah, I'll just share those 3 for now. But I think, as Kat mentioned, it's like really take note for, as you're thinking about these things, like when do you feel like alive and like have this deep connection to what you're talking about? I think those are great points to like look for in what is meaningful to you. Yeah, amazing. Cool. Let's move to wisdom trails, because I would love to hear more about that. Can you give like a short, or just not short, but yeah, what is wisdom trails?
Wisdom trails is a trail, like it's a journey, it's a search that I went on after being in the wellness world for almost 10 years. I've realized that there's something about the wellness industry that is very much an industry and a money churning one. And I started to miss this feeling of something pure or the sacred that I wasn't finding in all these places I've consulted for or worked with or even visited myself, all these retreats and, you know, wellness centers, and have like all these wellness offerings that I was even part of the team of consulting to create. I was like, but we're missing something. And then I realized that something cannot be commodified and shouldn't be commodified. It's something so pure and sacred, and it's something that it becomes more meaningful when we go on our own search for. So wisdom trails came out of that, and it came out of this desire and search to deepen my own understanding of spirituality, my own search for what I felt was missing, even in an industry that claims to provide wellness, right? So I started with Thailand. I've always wanted to film my grandpa, but always was too scared because, I don't know, there's something so personal about filming him. And also, like, he's not media trained, you know, like he's a shaman. So, you know, like he says some random things sometimes where I'm like, is that okay to like film? Like, should other people be hearing this? So like, and I didn't know how things would come together, but it's these like, again, these like stepping stones, right? I knew that I wanted to deepen. I have a background in journalism, so I knew that I could like fall back on those skills to bring a message forward. I have incredible friends around who are also storytellers. So little by little, they also helped me piece together a story to make the first episode of Wisdom Trails happen. And we came across 5 elders, or 6 elders actually, in Thailand for the first episode. We went to 7 provinces and interviewed them on what spirituality means to them, but also their spiritual practices. And eventually that leads to a understanding that the sacred is all around us. It's just a matter of wanting to remember it and to reconnect with it. So yeah, we're in the editing phase. We're adding animation to it because realizing that, we can't see what the elders see, so it'll be kind of hard to explain. So we're bringing in some animation to that, and it's just the beginning. I feel like this is going to be a lifetime's worth of work,
Yeah. That's so cool, and I love what you're doing. I guess is there like an ultimate dream or impact that you want to come out of this like project?
Yeah. Initially, I was like, I just want to make this because I need this for my heart. But I always knew that I was doing it for a version of myself too, and that version of myself is very present in youth, in the young people who are growing up without these connections to the elders, their wisdom, and their understanding of what spirituality or what the sacred could be. So I'm making it for us. I'm making it for us to remember again, because I know that if we lose this, we're really not going to be well. Our earth is not going to be well. And so the hope is to believe in why this unseen world is so important for us and for our world. Yeah.
That's so powerful.
Like, just like thinking about the feedback I've gotten from people watching, especially Thai people who've watched the trailer. They're like, they always remember something from their childhood, like a ceremony or a ritual that their parents brought them to, or a community that they grew up with, but then realizing right after too that, oh, I'm no longer connected to that tradition, and I no longer have that present in my life. And then they kind of become very big supporters of the project because they're like, I want to learn again. And I'm making it for us.
That's so cool. Just that like remembering and connecting to these old parts of like how they like were raised. But then it's like, and you touched on this of like how does this wisdom come into like the modern world in a way that like keeps it sacred and like true to what it is, without being like commodified, and like is that, and how do you see that working in such like a capitalist society that is trying to commodify everything?
That is such a good question. I think I have, so again, because I've also gone through the reality of wellness becoming an industry and it being commodified, and even ancient healing traditions becoming commodified, I realized that part of the money that comes through that is also a reality of the world we live in. We live in a capitalistic world. We live in a world that runs by money. We can't live in this world without money unless we were to live off-grid and not be a part of modern society. So I think money is one thing. I think the intention behind how we use money with our creations is another thing. So I can apply a capitalistic view to this project, and then it would become, me corrupting the sacredness of this wisdom by doing that, right? And I that's why I see this as like a spectrum of different realities, and different lineages also believe in making money differently and what money represents differently. So it's helping me also navigate all the grayness in between of like, how does money come into this, and what does it support? What's the intention behind that money, and what does it bring to the world of spirituality? And from how I'm understanding this project to become, I wouldn't want to sell the wisdom of an elder. That would be the definition of exploitation, right? Of wisdom. I see this almost as, so maybe this is the first place I'm saying this, but we're working on a digital platform actually, for people to learn about wisdom, about spiritual wisdom. And I don't see it as a place to commodify their spirituality, but it's a learning space. So how would you want to give back is another thing. Also checking in always with the elders, like, do you want to be on this platform? Does it sit right with your lineage? If not, like, we'll take it off, right? So it's this constant relationship that already changes the dynamic between an exploitative practice of, I will just do what it takes to earn money, rather than I will check in with everybody, the wisdom it comes from, the people who are learning, like, does it feel right to everybody? And when it feels right to everybody, I don't see this exchange of money being a bad thing. But that's my way of seeing things. And again, it is a big responsibility, because it doesn't even matter what I think anymore. It's really like, how do I facilitate people's realities? Because again, like, the more I meet elders, the more I see where different lineages teach different things about money, and even how it's being shared, and also like, how is wisdom and spirituality being shared, right? So it really comes into navigating all the spectrums of the rainbow, all the grayness as well, to find out what feels right to everybody. So it takes time. It's relationship building, and it's like navigating a lot of subtlety. And I think I had to go through, learning how to facilitate those conversations too, to be able to do that now. And also being okay, like really being okay if someone doesn't want their wisdom out there, then that's really up to them. Like, it's not for me to say. Does that answer your question?
It does. And I think, I just think it's challenging to exist in this way that's so much more open, and that takes the focus away from money in such like a money focused society and world. And I just want to give big kudos to you for doing that, because it does seem like a lot, but also very necessary if we want to live more intentionally and less money focused and more connected to these sacred things. I'm sure it's going to be a dynamic journey of a lot of changes and figuring out as things happen and unfold, which is going to be cool.
Totally. I'm learning a lot, because again, like, when you said the unknown, getting comfortable with the unknown is what is alive for you as well right now. I don't know everything, don't have the answers. I'm going to make mistakes. How I just told you how I see things and make sense of things is not right either, and it's not wrong. And that again comes into this, like what we were talking about, is that there's so many realities out there. How do we live with all of them, and how do we still live in harmony with them? I think that's actually the biggest goal, probably, or the biggest lesson that the platform will show us, is even with all these wisdom holders with different lineages, with different beliefs, with different taboos and different also boundaries, can we still live in harmony and have this wisdom live in service of the collective, completely egolessly? Can we do that? And that's like a very big question that I think I'm being asked to lean into.
So cool. I'm really excited for the platform and to have, I guess, easier access to these like shamans and healers and wisdom holders.
Yeah.
Can you share, I guess, any story that comes to mind from your journey on the wisdom trail so far that you think that you want to share?
I think filming happened a year and a half ago, but I still continued to, I just keep trailing, and the universe keeps providing me opportunities to travel and to meet elders and to keep documenting their stories, even if it isn't in the same documentary format. I just got back yesterday from Bai. My friend Kim, we're both studying with a plant medicine teacher in Bai. Her name's Pidang. She's in the documentary, but I think part of being a student is always learning and always going back to your teachers, right? It's not like a course and you're done and you get to be a practitioner. But we just got back yesterday from Pai, and we were walking in towards this waterfall in Pai, and I remember just every step of the way feeling that something was guiding us. And it often happens when we remember to soften, and it happens easier when we're in nature. And, we were walking in, there's like water, and then there's ground, and we had to take off our shoes. And it's just like kind of this journey of like always being mindful also where you step. There were these like fluorescent dragonflies that were playing with us because they were like kind of flying around us and guiding us, and everywhere we went, when we saw one, I felt like it was an invitation to go deeper. And we went deeper and deeper, and there, along the way, there's always things to play with. Like, I feel like plants are whispering to us and like being like, hey, beckoning us to come play. And there's this plant that, when you break the stem, you can blow out bubbles.
Whoa.
Like, I know. So it's like
That's
nature's
cool.
always playing with us, right? And then eventually we got to this part of the jungle that felt different. Like there was a shift in temperature, and it felt like a sacred space. When you walk into even like a temple or a church, and there's this energy about it, I felt that stillness in this part of the jungle, which was so magical. And Pidang was like, there's medicine here, because she felt it too. And she was guided to a tree that was struck by lightning. And when you looked underneath that tree, there were these huge lineage mushrooms, wild mushrooms, that support people who have cancer. And they're very rare and very hard to find. And she was so excited that we found them. But, in the traditional Thai medicine world, the belief is that doctors and healers are always led to the medicine, and nature's always trying to help us find medicine to heal each other, to help each other. And so I remember that once we took the mushrooms, we realized, like, these mushrooms are worth a lot if we're to think about the commercial way of valuing something, or the right. But Pidang took what she needed. She didn't take any more. We didn't think to take all the mushrooms to sell. And on top of that, that tree was dying because it was struck by lightning, so all those mushrooms were going to die. So you could think, if we thought about those mushrooms and valued it with money, we would have taken all of it probably and sold them. But no, we took it just enough for us, just enough for her patients, and we left a piece of an offering to thank nature, and then we left. So this is just like, this is an example of a way we can live that is just gentler to everyone, to everything. Yeah.
Beautiful. What a good story that I think encapsulates so much of what we've been talking about, like how to do this and the connection to the world and living in this like softened state. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. Yeah. I really feel like you feel that frequency as well when I'm talking to you. I feel like you get it.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, thanks.
I have no idea. Maybe. No, I think so. Okay. A few more things as we'll start to close it out here. So I guess bringing it back to, and I love that you touched on how so much of what you're doing is because of your connection to like youth and wanting to, I guess, give back and help them reconnect with these things. And so much of this podcast is about like teaching and exploring that big question of how do we better raise and educate our youth, our people, for more whole and meaningful lives. So we've touched on so many things, but what do you wish you were taught more growing up about life, about the sacred, about purpose?
I must say that I'm so grateful for my upbringing, and my parents were always very supportive. As weird as my life has turned out, and I've always been a bit weird. So I'm really grateful for my parents for putting up with, not weird, but just how different I am, and always how, and always me trying to figure out who I am in the world. I'm really, really grateful that I have the parents that I have for that. I realized, though, because I grew up in a city and because I grew up in a nuclear family, like it was me and my sister and my parents, my grandpa, my extended family lives not in the same house. The more I meet elders in rural areas of Thailand, the more I meet communities that have spiritual elders and healers in them, the more I realize that I didn't grow up with that. And maybe because I didn't grow up with that, I wish I had that. And I see how much value there is in keeping these ecosystems somehow alive in our modern world without trying to commodify either community, because that's just too easy to do nowadays. So I think that's what I wish I had, but I also see now why I didn't have it, because now I'm on this big search for it.
Totally. Love that. If you could add, so I guess that was more focused on you. So I guess for the more general population, if you could like design some kind of life curriculum or add some kind of skill or belief to what we're taught in school, what would it include?
Okay, this is where I would love new age wellness practices to come in for the kiddies, for everyone in school, or even for us to be schooled in. I think I've really leaned heavily on human design, astrology, even though that's not new, the way we're talking about astrology now is modern. These are even the gene keys. So like these three new age ways of understanding ourselves has deeply influenced me. So I would wish that this was in schooling curriculums and systems, because it teaches kids why they are special and their innate strengths and weaknesses, their life themes, how to navigate reality through their uniqueness. I think that would be something that I would love for all kids, because then it adds to the image of us being in our soft bubbles, not competing with each other, because we know that there's nothing to compete with. Our jobs are just to be the most ourselves. I think that I would love a world where I would love to live in that world where kids were educated in that.
I love that as well. That definitely connects to like my main answer, and something that I'm working towards with all of this is like, just in general, this like deeper connection to who we are as individuals, and less trying to be like pushed into these boxes and other ways of being.
How would you do that?
I once joked, and I guess not necessarily a joke, but with a coach of mine, we were talking about dreams and like my ultimate dreams, and one of them was to add this, I guess, class to schools that are on the same caliber as like science and math, but it's just called like, I guess life is the name I came up with. But in this class, it was a lot more just space to reflect and to connect to what is meaningful, like what's been going on in your life, to ask these other questions like, who am I? Like, what do I want to do? Like, what is meaningful to me? I think it would just be kind of this like open bubble to explore, and like give space for kids to actually just like go inward and like connect to themselves in that way.
Oh yeah, that just reminds me of a quote that I don't remember who said, but it was like, what kind of life would you live if you weren't shown any structures ever? And like, what if that was that life class, right?
Yeah. So interesting. So cool. Amazing. 2 more things. If someone feels, I guess, disconnected from themselves or from the sacred, what's a small first step that they can take?
I think this is where this was a great exercise to also get out of the comfort of a hardened being, which is to talk to nature. Like, nature is always communicating with us and we just don't see it. But like, speaking to a plant, as silly as it might sound at first, or as self-conscious as you might get at first, speak to a plant and just listen. And just even imagine what the plant would say back to you, and then engage in conversation. And I've done this at the park near my house, and like, people literally stare at me and they're like, what the heck? And if I'm going with my sister, she's like, is she okay? But but like, even in the park in Bangkok, like in Bentakiti Park, there are some plants that are super friendly, right? There are some plants that are like, that are playing with you, and there are some plants that I get near and I want to talk, but they don't want to talk, and I can feel the subtleness of their energies, and there's something that shifts, that's like, get off my roots, like, get off, like, go. And so I think even that can reconnect you with having a sacred relationship, or a connection to the sacred, that is very easy to do if you don't judge yourself. And if you're not afraid of being judged.
Yeah. I love that. I think I just found what I'm going to do tomorrow. Yeah. Okay. Anything on your heart that you'd like to leave us with?
I really, really enjoyed this conversation. I think I didn't know that what I would be talking about could be relevant to you, Max, because I was like, I don't think I'm outright educating people or talking about education, but I'm just realizing that what we've talked about is maybe even redefining the way we live and see the world, or an invitation to another way of seeing and making sense of the world. And that comes through learning how to do it. And so I'm really, really grateful for you and what you're doing and your questions and also your depth. Yeah, thank you. That was really, really wonderful.
Thank you as well, and thank you again for being open to it. Yeah, when you were just sharing about that, it made me think of how you were kind of explaining the experience with like elders and how they share and teach in stories. And yeah, it's not necessarily like some curriculum or like step-by-step of learnings and stuff, but it's just learning through stories and experiences and sharings. And I think you've done an incredible job of sharing, and I think there are so many things that people can take away from this. So thank you so much.
I'm so glad. Thank you.
Yeah, where, if you want to be found, where can people go to find more about you, about Wisdom Trails? Yeah, not physically, I love where you live, but online.
Well, I love that you said if you want to be found. You can find me on Instagram at Cat Lau Healing, and I'm mostly posting about updates on Wisdom Trails there. And yeah, that would be the best way to find me.
Okay, amazing. And I will link to that. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Max. I'm so grateful.